folks, welcome back to the Frontier Western Heritage Channel. I'm Todd Kessner outside of Bozeman, Montana here at the gun range. And today we're going to run another trial with the Smith & Wesson Model 1.5 32 rimfire. This is the second issue. And if you remember the last time we did this, you happened to watch that video, I had ammunition. It shoots the 32 short. It can also shoot the 32 long. I had copper cased rimfire ammunition from the period the gun was developed, and we had, which is the 1860s, well 1870s really for this particular issue, and we had multiple misfires. And so if you watch that video, out of the, I think 12 or 14 rounds that I had available to me of that period correct ammunition, only 2 of them went off, and so we had a hard time really doing a whole lot of tests with that, with just 2 rounds that went off. And so we're back today. I have rounded up some more modern ammunition, and this is the Navy Arms ammo that was put out, I think it was manufactured in Brazil or some darn place, and put out on the market in the 90s. And so it is loaded with smokeless powder, but loaded to the pressure and velocity and as close as they could to the black powder round. And so we're hoping that that is going to work out just fine. It's this little 32 short rimfire, and a lot more reliable ignition on the priming powder, hopefully, and then the main charge as well. I also have just a few of the 32 long rimfires, and they're supposed to go in this gun as well, and so I'm thinking about running those. We'll see how these short ones go, and then see how I feel about running the longer ones through a gun that was made in the 1870s. But they should be safe because I don't have the box for the long. This is the box for the 32 short, but the same kind of box came with the 32 long, and it actually has a picture of the Smith & Wesson tip-ups that they originally went in when the first ones came out. So I'm hoping this is very safe ammo. People have told me it is. We're going to give it a try. But first, let's do a really quick review on the Smith & Wesson line with these 32 rimfires. The Smith & Wesson Model 1.5 hit the market in 1865 and ran through 1868 with about 26,000 being made, and is easily identified by the smooth cylinder and then the octagon barrel. It came in a barrel length of 3.5 inches or 4. It was replaced in 1868 by the second issue, which ran through 1875 with about 100,000 copies being made. And the second issue, the one that we're shooting today, is easily identifiable mostly by the fluted cylinder, but it also has a round barrel, and it could be 2.5 to 3.5 inches long, and it fired the 32 rimfire long and the 32 rimfire short. The third issue is actually an entirely different gun. It started up in 1878 and it ran all the way through 1892 with 97,000 approximately made altogether. And it's a completely different model because it's a top break revolver, and it fired the Smith & Wesson 32 centerfire as well, and rather than the rimfire, and had barrel lengths from 3 inches all the way up to 10 inches. Well, let's put 5 of them in the Smith & Wesson tip-up, and we'll see what kind of velocities we get out of this relatively newly manufactured ammunition. So in typical tip-up fashion, I've got to slide the catch release off of here, tip my barrel up, pull my cylinder out, which is the way these firearms operated, put in my 5, and we're going to do a little chronograph test here and see what kind of velocities we're going to get and compare them to those 2 black powder rounds that did finally go off after numerous trials the last time we were out here. I'm going to get a set of glasses on because you never know what's going to happen. And my earplugs in. And let's give her a trial here. All right, so that one showed me an error, so we've got to figure out how that I didn't quite get this bullet over those electric eyes. So let me try just shooting a little lower in the chronograph, see if that makes a difference. Still nothing. We're gonna have to make an adjustment here and give this another try. I'm going to knock out these two cases that didn't register, and we're going to try a series of 5 again. This thing that looks like the cylinder arbor is nothing more than an ejection rod. That is not going real easy. Boy, those guys really puffed out to the cylinder walls. All right, they expanded pretty strongly, which is kind of nice because then you don't get a lot of blowback back into your action. Definitely cleaner than the original black powder ones that went off. All right, I got 5 back in there. Let's see if we can get 5 to register on the chronograph. All right. Well, I've got a 685.4, but I think the best one I had out of those original rounds was a 400 and something, if I remember back to that last video. So we've already jumped considerably. The consideration was, with the way those things misfired, who knows in the history of 150 years if they got wet, what happened to them, if they would have originally been that slow or not. This one's got a good 250 feet per second on those. So yeah, I wish I had antique ammo that I could rely on and really compare it to where it would have been originally. I just don't know. But we're going to try this several times here and see if it stays in that 600 range. The original load for the 32 short was 80 grains, or an 80 grain bullet with 9 grains of black powder, and I still haven't figured out what the size of that was. My guess would be about 3F. But let's shoot these next 4 and see what we got. Went up a little bit, got 693. $661. $713. Boy, and 539. That one was a pretty huge variable there. All right, I'm going to pull these rounds out of here. And you know, the way this thing is feeling, I think I'm going to shoot those. I only have 5 of them. I'm going to shoot those 32 rimfire longs just to see what we've got here. So let me plunk these guys out. I bet you that one that just fell out was the one that was at 530. I can't tell you for sure, but my guess would be this is the one that's at 539 feet per second, because it just fell out of the cylinder and was not nearly as powerful as the rest. And the rest of them aren't going to do that for me that easy. But I am going to grab my 32 longs and let's give this a try. I'm kind of curious. I hope I don't do any damage. I don't think that I will, not by the way things feel, but it'd be fun to try. So this one, the same kind of cartridge. It just had, they put a 90 grain bullet in the 32 long and about 13 grains of black powder. So it was a much stiffer round than the 32 short by really a stretch of the imagination. No stretch of the imagination could you say it was a really powerful round, but definitely stiffer than the short. So I'm going to drop these guys in, see what we get. That clicked in. All right, let's see what the 32 long rimfire will do. .472. There is a tremendous variation in this ammo. That's worse than all of the shots out of the 32 short. So I'm getting to think here that when Navy Arms made this, they weren't looking for quality and consistency to the point of doing a test like this. They're just allowing you to be able to shoot an antique firearm and have a little fun with it. But let's see. That was a puny one. 485. So a little bit bigger bullet and slower velocity. .583. Now we're starting to climb up there. .430. And that one didn't register, unfortunately. All right, well that went fast. There goes my 5 rounds that I had of 32 long rimfire. So you can get this thing back open, and I don't know why the velocity was so bad. They just fall out. So evidently they were very concerned about the possibility of damaging these old guns with the 32 long, because it looks like the bullet is about the same. Maybe it's at 10 grains heavier. It's hard to say. I'd have to pull them apart and really take a look at it, but if it is a heavier bullet, that'd affect the velocity a little bit, but so would the supposedly higher powder charge. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking that they might have very likely at the factory loaded these even lower, just to be super sure that they didn't overload them and blow up an old gun. So there wasn't an advantage to having a long in there compared to a short with the test runs anyway. So I've got one more test I want to try. I want to see if that 32 short, what that's going to do to a piece of wood, and see if I can get it through a 1.5 inch 2x4, just to get a picture of what penetration might look like with one of these. There were over 300,000 of just the Smith & Wessons manufactured, and so much like today, back in the 1860s when they first came out with the 1.5, 1870s, and then the 32 centerfire that came out later with the top break action. You know, they weren't super powerful guns, but over 300,000 of just the Smith & Wessons were sold. So you know that much like today, it's handy to carry one of these. It's enough to give yourself some protection. You know, the ammo, they probably didn't shoot them all that much, and very likely just had them a lot of times, you know, maybe in a dresser drawer or in a shirt pocket or something like that. But yeah, it's just interesting on really how a relatively inferior cartridge when it comes to power, how popular it was, and it wasn't because somebody wanted to gunfight with it. It's just because somebody wanted some very basic self-defense, and in a dire situation. So it definitely had its place on the market, and the best-selling guns as today, back in the 1800s, were these little pocket pistols that sold again in the hundreds of thousands, and that's what we're seeing with some of those micros that we offer today. So before I get into this last test, I just want to talk about my hat a little bit. I got this hat this summer, and if you watch the 4-H video that I did when I was at the 4-H National Championships, you would have seen in the evening I had this hat on as more of a dress hat, and I still got my old sweaty Stetson, and I'm never going to get rid of that. But this dress hat is a custom hat, and it came from Montana Mad Hatters out of Twin Bridges, Montana. And the Montana Mad Hatters is a family-owned business. Really, the owner is the employee, and puts these hats together. I don't get a sponsorship. I don't get a break in price. I haven't got paid for anything. But when somebody can put out a product out of a little bitty town of Twin Bridges, Montana, and that product is just a superior product for a really fair price, I just like to talk about them. Anyway, let's go on and move on to the 32 short and see if we can break a 2x4 in half. Well, we've got a little makeshift put together penetration test here. I've got a little chunk of 2x4 leaned up against a couple of 4x4s and all backed up by a 25-pound bag of lead shot. So we're going to see at card table distance, I can't be more than 6 feet from that board, but at card table distance, what the 32 short is going to do if we try to put it through a 2x4. So let's give it a run. I'm just going to get down good and level so I can hit it as square as I can. And we'll see what happens. That surprised me. I didn't think it was going to go through the 2x4. It penetrated the 2x4 and it is in the 4x4. Yeah, go ahead and set that up one more time. Let me give it another try. I'm a little more impressed than I thought it was going to be. It was awful close to the first shot. I'm going to try to hit a little farther on the right and see what happens. Yeah, but that went through and into the 4x4 as well.
Hang on.
Yeah, let's see what we got there. It didn't move out of the way, so it's hard for me to tell from this angle. If you don't mind, just pull that board away. Yeah, same thing. I tell you what, why don't you leave the board out of the way? I'm just going to put it into that 4x4 and see if it'll go through the 4x4. No, 4x4 is too thick for it. 2x4, however, was not. So that is somewhat impressive, though. All right, back out of there. I'm going to put the last round through that 4x4 and let's see what we get. Well, I got to tell you, I am a little impressed here with this 32 short. I had really had my doubts that it was going to go through a piece of 2x4, even knowing that the energy was as low as it was. And of course, this is a pretty dry piece of wood. Obviously, it'd be different if it was a little more green, but still, every one of those rounds that I tried in the 2x4 went through, busted out the back, and went slamming into the 4x4. And then we tried the 4x4, and it didn't go all the way through, but it went a pretty good distance. And so I am a little impressed with this 32 short. Nothing that I would want to get hit with. It probably wouldn't be immediately lethal, but it definitely would be if you got infected, and it's something that just makes you bleed, and I would prefer not to have that happen. So, but a little more powerful than I had originally had in mind. So that's the trial with the 32 short and long rimfire and the Smith & Wesson 1.5 tip up, and we tried I'll show you the comparison between these two. I've got the 32 short and the 32 long, and so you can see the long is considerably longer, but absolutely pathetic when it came to velocity. And I didn't have enough of these 32 longs to do the wood penetration test, but I did have enough of the shorts, and so that's why we did the shorts. But looking at the chronograph numbers, at least the way they loaded this ammo, the shorts were a lot better performer than the 32 rimfire long anyway. So if any of you guys have original ammo, you've done this, you might have some period correct black powder ammo from the 1870s that were in the rimfire that actually performed and may not have gotten wet and didn't have all those misfires like I did. If you've shot some of these, particularly the long, I'm really interested to know how you feel about that black powder long, because I don't have any that I'm confident are going to give me a fair test, and so I've got a few that are on display in a cartridge collection, but again, they're old, and I don't know if I've got enough of them to make a good test. So if you got any experience with that 32 long, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. the performance is just interesting. The fun part is being able to shoot a gun that was manufactured in the 1870s and shoot it safely and have a lot of fun with it. We're going to move on to other trials as we go further into the fall, but for today I just want to thank you for coming. And how, boy, it looks like we were right in my face.
I think you missed the plate.
I did miss the plate.
I know.
I think I was more concerned about where my glasses were pointing than where my gun was pointing. But absolutely beautiful, 100% beaver hat with a traditional, historically correct ribbon on it. And I just wanted to put a plug in for Montana. I just wanted to put a plug in to the Monhata. I always say thanks for coming.
Right, but then you didn't come to anything, so I was saying maybe today is the day that you...
No, today's not today. We don't change anything.
Oh, okay.